Saturday, Sunday?
Yeah, that's Saturday. I mean, presume Sunday depends on Saturday.
Yeah, no, well, both sets of teams are playing. Just winners play.
Yeah, winners play on. Yeah, winners play at 12 and losers play at 10.
Fine with them.
That usually works.
Okay, you want to go ahead and get started?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We're live now. The microphone is on the computer, so you're just going to be here. What you're seeing, Chris, let me show you this. Yep. So it's projecting on there.
I can see it here,
and then you can just see in here, and all you need to do is scroll.
Cool. All right. Well, good afternoon, good evening. All right, how am I scrolling on your thing? Is it like? Well, it's not a. Am I unfamiliar with?
Let's see. There you go.
Okay. All right. I'm going to talk about ARing. This is Chris Tucker here. I got Eric, the wizard, is going to be talking about number 4s right after me. So basically, I kind of put this in the form of a checklist, right? I'm not planning here to go over, law here. I'm going to go over teamwork and what you can do as an AR to make the best officiating outcome of the game. And essentially, I mean, your job here starts before you get to the pitch, right? Get your stuff together. The ref has got a bunch of stuff to do, and you need to make the ref's job as stress-free as possible, right? And it starts with making sure you got the right things in your kit bag. Bring your flags. The ref may not have them. Bring your society shirts, as many as you've got, because we have to figure out a color that everybody has in their kit bag and that nobody is wearing on the field. So, don't just show up with one ratty shirt. Show up, look good, be neat, and bring your shirts. Bring a watch, because the ref's going to ask you to back him up on time. And bring a pen and paper, because the ref's going to ask you to back him up on other things like the score and taking notes on yellow cards and so on and so forth. So bring these things. The second thing is make sure before you got to the field that you have read and that you have reread Law 18, which is, Eric? Touch and line out. Thank you, Eric. And Law 3, which is the rules on team. If you have a fourth, maybe that becomes less important, but you still need to familiarize yourself with this, refamiliarize yourself with this, so that you can manage your primary responsibilities, which we'll go over in a minute. All right. The last thing is get there at the same time as the ref. Don't be getting there 5 minutes before kickoff, because the ref needs to talk to you. The ref needs a bunch of other stuff for you to do before we get to the game. And if you show up 5 minutes in advance, or like Pete, 24 minutes after.
Talk to my friends at Costco.
Hey, Pete. Then, you're just putting pressure on the ref and making it hard for them to get themselves ready, right? So be there on time and be there with the right mindset and the right gear. So the next thing, when you got to the field, right? I mean, your basic job is to support the ref, to help the ref get ready. And so be part of the pregame, right? Don't just sit on the sideline, shooting the shit with whoever's there. Get yourself to the various activities that you would if you were refereeing anyway, right? Be part of the check-in with the teams. Check their kit. Be at the front row briefing. Make sure that everybody sees that you are there, right? A big part of your function here before the game starts is simply to raise awareness of your existence, right? If the teams know that there's a team of 3, then they know they can't get away with stuff. And so they won't try. And so you are trying at this point to simply announce your presence, right? Same thing, be at the coin toss. Not only do you need to know what the outcome of the coin toss is, but also, you know, the referee can introduce you to the captains. Everyone can get on the same page with the fact that this is a, you know, 3-by-3 refereed game, not just a guy in the center and 2 clowns with a flag on the side, right? So be there, do these things. And then once you've done that, now it's time to talk with the ref about what they need from you. Now, this is going to change depending on the referee. Every referee has their preferences. There's some consistent pieces in the middle, and those who, I don't know, Paul, did you forward the email from that the panel referee wrote on this subject?
Oh, the media?
Yeah.
I've got it. I think that was sent by John Pullman.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, so you know, there's Amelia sent that example. If you don't have it, we can forward it. But you know, John Pullman has that, and it's a good example of what one referee wants. It's not identical to what I would want, but it's similar in many ways, right? There's some core elements of that, which I'm going to go through in a minute, right? But the whole purpose of this meeting is to assign the responsibilities, right? To identify who is doing what. Do you have a fourth official? If so, what is the fourth official doing versus what the ARs are doing, right? What is the interface between them, right? Because typically it's teams go to the fourth official with a substitution request. The fourth official then brings that player to the AR on that side, and then the AR gets the attention of the referee, right? But this has to be blocked out beforehand so everybody knows that that's the procedure, right? The AR can then call into the ref, say, hey, I've got a substitution, 8 is coming off, right? Ref doesn't care who's going on. Ref just cares who's coming off. 8 green. Great, thanks. All right, so understanding these responsibilities, who's keeping time, who's keeping score, you know, ref should be doing these things, but you're backing them up, right? And a bunch of other things around game management, which we'll cover in a minute, right? Another one here is communication preferences, right? How do you want to get my attention, right? If you have do you have radios or not is a big question. If you have radios, it's a lot easier because you can just say, hey, if you've got something, you know, you can have that radioed in. But if you don't, my personal preference is that if you need my attention, you call my first name, right? You say Chris, and then you're the only person on there who's saying Chris. Players are saying sir. Everybody else is saying you effing idiot. You're the only one who's saying Chris, right? And I listen to that. So I listen for that. Other people have different strategies, but that's what I listen for, right? And if you need my attention, that's how you get it. And that's what I'll go over with you in a briefing, right? If you do have radios, this is when you check they're working. Half an hour beforehand, you can do something about it. 5 minutes beforehand, you cannot do anything about it except go to the old school method of, you know, semaphore, right? So make sure it's working, get everything done. And then pretty much your job is to just hang out and stay loose. The only other thing you're going to need to do at some point is whoever's on the side where the technical zones are needs to introduce themselves to the management of the teams. Make your expectations clear regarding, you know, where they're going to be, who's in the tech zone, what the substitution patterns look like, and so on and so forth, so that they're clear on what you've discussed internally. Do it in advance, everybody knows, and there's no problem. If you've got a fourth official, they'll take care of that, but if you don't, it becomes relevant here. All right, Paul. All right, Paul, you're gonna have to help me with this scrolling thing again. It's not, no, it's not going.
No, you're there. You just slide it.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to slide it and it's not going. Somebody else's computer.
What do you want right there?
Yeah, so this thing. Okay. So this is some of the stuff that you will go over in the pregame, but I'm just going to do it as if, this is what I want you to do in a game, right? Job one has been and always will be is touch and goal, right? There's a minor distinction between the two based on when somebody's kicking, obviously. But this is job one. Does the ball go out? Yes, get the flag up, right? The first thing that you need to do in order to help with this exercise is to keep up, right? Now, I know that we're probably running around after, 20-year-old kids, and that gets tiring, but you've got to be on it. If you're at halfway and we're running into in goal, you are no use to anybody, right? You've got to do your best to keep up with the play. Don't be, as I saw the other week, the player, the AR who bends down to make sure that a player who's lying injured is okay. Right? The player has 14 teammates, a management staff, and an athletic trainer on the sideline for that. So forget it. They'll be fine. Did their leg fall off? No. Then you're probably more valuable chasing after the rest of the game than you are making sure that they're okay. They'll live. So keep up, and when you see the ball go into touch, or the player carrying the ball go into touch, get your flag up and yell touch. I can't see a flag out of the corner of my eye. Well, if it's on the left side, I can, but if it's on the right side, I can't. But I can hear from behind me if you yell touch. It's that simple. And then I'll look up, the flag's up, great, fine, whistle goes. That simple. Arm out when the quick throw is off. So players want to go quickly, absolutely fine. If you put your arm out, you've seen something, they've got a different ball, somebody else has touched it, whatever.
What are the reasons?
What's that?
What are the reasons for not being able to go quick?
Line out is formed. Two players from either side in the box, or somebody else has touched the ball, or it's a different ball.
Well, if 2 players from the offensive side, you can have 10 from the defensive side, and you can still have a quick throw.
True. Yeah.
And the 10 by 10 box is the 5 to the 15 line of touchback 10, right?
Yes.
Okay, just check.
Right. But a line out is formed when you have 2 of each.
2 from each team.
2 from each team. Right. You do not have to approach if you want to take a quick throw. But if you approach by accident, then there's off. So anyway, arm out when it's off, and I ain't gonna let it go quick. Right? Arm's not out, you can let it go quick. If you've made a mistake, you can radio me in and say, hey, no quick, and we'll rectify the situation.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So I've seen this for years now, and it drives me nuts every time I see it. So a team that does not want to have a quick throw in, they rush up to the line, they stand there at 5 meters, and they say, lineout's been formed. Okay? With nobody else there.
Mm-hmm.
Has a lineout been formed if there are 3 or more defensive players there and only one person with the ball that's holding onto it in touch?
Nope.
When is it? So can a defense, here's the question. Can the defense determine if a lineout has been formed?
No.
Who determines when a lineout has been formed?
Both teams.
Both teams. So if the defense shows it there,
yep,
it doesn't necessarily mean that a lineout's been formed.
Correct.
And if the offense is there, it doesn't mean that a lineout has been formed.
Correct.
It means both teams have to be in that box.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Now that said, if the defense isn't there, the offense can still throw the ball in under the guise of a quick throw-in, but not a quick line out.
Yes, you can take a line out quickly taken.
Yes.
Has to be straight and on the mark.
Right.
Right.
100%.
A quick throw in can be from anywhere behind the mark and towards their own goal line. Right.
So just for clarity, how can a defense prevent a quick throw-in?
If they touch the ball, they're guilty of time wasting, and that'll be a free kick against them.
Can a defensive person just touch the ball and it's no longer a quick throw-in option?
No.
If you have the ball and I go touch the ball and it's in your hands, has that determined that a quick throw-in is no longer an option?
No.
Right.
I mean, well, you can have this one of two ways, right? And this is one of those that you'll be wanting to manage, right? I mean, the issue here is that technically, yeah, I believe that does invalidate it, but that is preventing a throw from taking place, which is absolutely against the law.
I'm not suggesting that you and I wrestle for the ball, and I'm not suggesting that the defense grab the ball and prevent you from throwing it in. I'm just suggesting that if I touch the ball, it means that there's been two people that have touched the ball. And in order for a quick throw in to occur, the same person who retrieves the ball has got to be the same person that throws it in.
Right.
Okay. So if you and I touch the ball and I just go touch it, that invalidates a quick throw in.
Yeah, I mean, if the ball's at your feet and you pick it up and gentlemanly hand it to your opposition, there's no quick throw.
Good.
But if I'm ready to throw and you go up and you touch it,
right,
there'll be a free kick in 15.
Correct. Because at that point you're preventing it.
Right.
So the goal for a team that doesn't want a quick throw in is simply to just touch the ball,
go and get it,
or go get it and hand it to somebody else.
Yeah. Right.
Because because defense by themselves do not form a lineout, and an offense doesn't have to wait for the defense to show up as long as they throw it in as a correct lineout.
Right. And similarly, the person who is standing at the touch line, waving his hands in front of the thrower, is inviting a bloody nose from a ball smacked into his face, because that's just stopping the ball going 5, sorry. And if the guy throws that into your face, well, that's a silly place to stand, and we'll come in 15 for a free kick to the throw.
Now, as an AR, how can that AR support communicating to the referee if the quick throw in is on or off?
Well, so the signal that has been generally accepted is the flag is up for touch and the arm is out for no quick throw. The AR can also support the referee in this instance by yelling at players to not do stupid things. Right? So if somebody is standing in front of a quick throw, you can point out, like, you're not 5, or get back 5, right? And, if they're trying to prevent a throw illegally, let them know that what they're doing is not on, right? That's a perfectly reasonable thing for an AR to manage. So, arm out, no quick throw. The only other piece on touch that I would note here is when somebody's kicking for the sideline and you're relatively close to the goal line, the place for you to be is at the flag, right? I don't care really whether the mark is 2 meters one way or another on the sideline, because you weren't standing exactly where it went out. I very much care whether the ball was 1 inch either side of the corner flag when they're kicking it, right? 1 inch into touching goal, we're coming back for a scrum or a 22, right? 1 inch the other way, we have a 5 meter line out to the attacking team, right? That's that's a huge, huge swing. And so that determines that you must stand there, right? You must stand ready to make that call. We'll deal with the rest of it. I can point out roughly where the ball went out. We'll figure out where the mark is, right? That's not the hard piece. So that's kind of the touch piece. The second one is adjudicating kicks. Not a whole lot to this one. Must be over the crossbar and between the posts. That simple. But make sure that you're talking to your opposite number, right? Because 2 flags up is good. 2 flags down is fine. 1 flag up and 1 flag down means we're all stopping and having a chat about why we look stupid, right? Talk to your opposite number, your call, good, up, done.
Where should you stand?
Typically directly behind the post.
So you have
right?
one person belly up to the post that's nearest beside the kicker, and the other person will be back deep.
Yeah, I would do it that way around. But in line, if you drew a line between the ball and the post,
right,
you're on that line.
You're at an angle if they're kicking from the sideline.
Yeah, right. Because I see far too many people standing perpendicular to where it is. It's like, I can see better from where I am what this is. How are you helping me here? Right. And the only other fun one is, does it go over the crossbar on a long kick? And that's why you have one of you close to the posts, just to make sure that angle goes right. It is possible to get this wrong. I have done it. It was a little embarrassing. Anyway, so adjudicating kicks, please don't mess that up. It's not the hardest part of the things you will do all day. So, okay, job 3 is to help manage the game, right? And this is, I put some things in here. There's a whole lot that this can encompass, right? But your general job is to support the referee. Your job in this is not to be the referee. Your job is to support the referee, and it's important to remember that. You know, you see a lot of people, particularly those who are accustomed to being the referee in center, actually trying to referee the game from the sideline, and it's not helpful to anybody. But there's some relatively straightforward things you can do. You can mark 5 on a scrum, you can mark 10 on a line out or a penalty, and the signal for when they're not back is your arm out, perpendicular to the touchline, not your flag. If I see any of you this weekend sticking a flag out telling me that they're not back 10, I will come over there and shove it somewhere uncomfortable. Stick your arm out. Tell the players and the winger that when the arm is out like this, those who can see me, I'm holding my arm out. When the arm's out, you guys are offside and you need to fix that problem, right? When you're onside, my arm's going to go down. Then you're all good, right? Make sure the teams know it. That's the signal you're going to be giving them, right? And talk to your winger. The winger's maybe like the newbie on the team, but he at least knows everybody's name in center, right? You don't, and you can't yell across, you know, 13, 12, and 10. You can't get that far across the field in a big game, right? He can because he knows their name, right? So find out who the winger is, communicate with them, stick your arm out when they're off. And if they creep up, put your arm back up again. And if I look over and you've got your arm up, I know what happened, right? If I'm in center and like, those guys seem to get there real quick. Oh, look, my AR's got his arm up. Well, now I've got advantage coming, right? It's that simple. If I don't look up, that means I'm probably not concerned with where they are. Please put your arm down. Now you've just told, you are also telling everybody else that you saw them be offside, and I don't need that pressure. So it's got a real short half-life. If I look, you got your arm up, fine. If I don't look, put your arm back down, thanks. Same for knock-ons. It's like real short. If I'm looking up at you, is that forward? Yeah, you can give me a small motion that it was forward. If I don't look at you, I don't care. Thanks for your input, though. Right. The other piece of this, I mean, that's kind of a simple thing. As a general rule, look, I put in here, watch the referee's back. And I kind of put the other one that lower down that says move to the right place to see things. And these are really kind of similar ideas, right? Is that the referee has one pair of eyes. With 3 of us on the field, we can see a whole lot more, right? But you have to do that contextually. So you have to understand what the referee is looking at and look at something different. Right? It doesn't help me very much to have you look at all the same things that I'm looking at from the same angle that I'm looking at them from, right? It helps you to either look at something else. So, you know, ball gets passed out of a breakdown, I'm going to follow the ball. Watch the breakdown. If you watch the breakdown, you're going to see some funny stuff happen, and you can yell at people to stop it. I can't because I'm running the other way, right? Similarly, if we're close to the goal line and if I know you're there, I'm going to position myself in the field, infield, right? So you know it's coming. If it's coming the other way, it's going to be your responsibility. But at the same time, if I'm towards the attacking team, push yourself towards the defensive team and take a look at what's going on over there, right? Because if we're both looking at it from an attacking standpoint, funny stuff happens on the other side that we don't see. So be on the other side of the breakdown to me, right? And then you'll see stuff that I don't see, right? It's just as, and if I move the other way, right? If I go in, come back, right? And we'll you know, that way, if you rotate around, you know, then we can cover a lot more views on what this is. If you think about this in terms of, you know, the video ref, how many camera angles did they look at? A dozen, right? Well, we have 1 on a typical day. We have 3 when we have ARs, right? So let's use them. Let's not have the same angle. Let's have different angles, right?
Can you kind of discuss on triangulating a little bit more? So as an example, who should be ahead of play? Who should be watching behind play? And we're assuming that the referee will typically have the ball. So who should be where? When should I be ahead of play, and when should I be watching your back?
So typically, if the ball is coming towards you, I want you in front, right? If the ball is going away from you, that's when you watch where I've gone. Because if you think about where I'm going, you know, imagine the mental picture that says I'm peeling away and running upfield. That's where I'm looking, and I want the AR on that side to be having the opposite angle, so you need to be in front, right? So the AR that I'm running towards needs to be looking back towards the ball, and the AR on the other side needs to take a look at where I've come from, right? And that way, you know, they have a wide open space on that side to see anything that might be untoward, right? You know, same thing when you think about, you know, kicking. Like if a player is kicking, you know which way. If you know which way they're going to kick it, you know, if they're coming to you, you want to be upfield, right? Because that's where the ball's going, right? And you can get a jump on this whole thing by being way up. If they're kicking the other side, hang back, right? Because that's where, you know, you can watch the kicker, right? If I know you're watching the kicker to make sure he's fine, I can peel up early.
What is the backside AR want to specifically be looking for?
In which situation?
So if the ball is moving away from me, I've got backside. What should I be looking at specifically?
So typically, if we're talking about away from a breakdown, I would watch what is happening as people exit the breakdown. It's amazing how many times people get upset about what happened in the breakdown for no apparently clear reason, right? And the time when they're going to do it is do something about it is right there and then. He touched my balls. Whack. Okay, well, you're standing right there. You know, you yell at him. Like, 4 green, leave it. Right? And, you know, if he doesn't leave it, then we'll cover that in a minute. So, but that's essentially what you're looking at there. If you're talking about a kick, you're looking at what the what defensive players or receiving players, I guess, are doing to the kicker themselves, right? You know, number one, if somebody right near you is offside, you can probably try to get them to stop. But most likely what you're looking for is a late hit on the kicker or obstruction of the kicker, right? It's not always a hit. It can be a pull of the shirt. It can be stepping into their path. You know, keep an eye on that.
So you're tending to look specifically for foul play in that back instance.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the ball's going away. There's nothing material happening other than foul play, right? Going in the other direction, plenty of material stuff happens, right? But leaving a breakdown, the ball's gone. You know, there's nothing they can do to affect play that I would ever call except for foul play. So, I think I mostly cover this in obliquely, but do communicate directly with the players, right? You know, having a stern voice on the sideline, watching them, and you see them do something stupid, you know, if that, or if they just, you know, they're creeping up on your side, 11 white, back foot. You say that, I hear it for a start. And now I can figure out if something goes wrong if he goes this way. But also, he's probably going to listen to you, right? So, you know, yell at him. But do it in that format, right? You know, it's just like you would as a ref. Number, color, instruction, right? I hear it. They hear it. We're all better for it, right? I covered the short half-life of some signals. We'll cover foul play in a minute, which doesn't have a half-life. But offside, knock-ons, other little bits and pieces, they have real short half-lives. Touch does not have a half-life. If you see touch, your flag goes up and it stays up until I blow my whistle, right? And if you could, because I may, you know, if we're going up, you know, unless I specifically tell you, no, we're playing on, I saw it, it's good, keep your flag up, because that could be the difference between a try. Keep it up. Follow the play, but keep it up. You know, foul play also doesn't have a half-life. But knock-on has a real quick half-life. So if you give me this signal and I say play on, we're playing on, and you need to stop giving me the signal.
I would like to add one piece to that because we're now in playoff mode. The better teams are coming to are coming to fruition. And the field, as big as it gets, a lot of stuff happens on the sidelines, close to touch, because players are maximizing space. As a referee, I would prefer that flag, when it goes in touch, comes up late rather than quick. So late and accurate rather than quick and not accurate.
Yep.
I can as a referee, I can hold off on 2 seconds to see that flag come up, but we can't undo it.
Yep.
So before that flag comes up, you have to make sure that ball went into touch. Either somebody carried it, or it's the ball itself touched the line, or something of that effect, because there's a lot of inaccuracies that happen because these players are becoming more athletic. They have a better sense of where they are in time and space. And a lot of times players will be in midair when that ball, when it looks like they're in touch and they're really not. And a lot of times a player will be in tackle, okay? And as he's in tackle, he's placed the ball on the ground, but his body has touched the sideline. That is not in touch. Okay, so if I've been tackled and a tackle has occurred, and then the ball gets placed, and then his body slides out, that ball is still in play. It's not in touch. So be sure that the player actually is in touch before that flag comes up, because there's too many instances of inaccurate calls from an AR, and it's a deciding factor. I want to emphasize the idea that make sure your calls are accurate.
Yep, I think that's well said. Thank you. What's that?
Touch is a turnover, so be careful. That's
Yeah,
why
right.
Paul's saying.
Yeah. And go back and look at the first slide, which is read and reread Law 18. And make sure you know what the definitions are that we're working with here. If you didn't know, it has changed. It was extensively rewritten. And so make sure that you understand exactly how it works. If you have questions, ask your referee. They should know. The last piece here is foul play. If you see something that is covered, put your flag out. And I mean perpendicular to the touchline, put it out and keep it out. If you see the other AR with a flag out, put your own flag out, right? And everybody knows. So the sorry, Pete, you just lost my train of thought there. When you see it, communicate. If you have radios, radio in, you have foul play, and let the referee know the team that committed it, right? Foul play against white, right? It matters who did it, right? Because I'm not going to stop the game unless it's a turnover, right? I'm going to keep going. We're going to get to whatever happens, and then we're going to discuss it, right? And I don't want to be having a discussion about exactly what happened. Just tell me foul play against white, right? When I stop the game, if it's a turnover, I'm going to stop it. If it's not a turnover, we're going to play, and then I eventually will bring you over when the ball is dead. I want to know 3 things from you at that point, and I want you to tell me very calmly, with your hands by your sides. I want you to tell me again which color the player plays for, what their number is, and a very brief description of the offense, right? And then I'm going to clarify that with you, and then I'm going to ask additional questions as necessary, right? I may or may not ask you for a recommendation. I may or may not need more detail, but let me be the one who's leading this conversation, right? Don't spill all the beans immediately. We'll just do it in a very calm, gentle, and closed question fashion, right? If you don't have the number of the player, get it. I do not want to know some player in white punched some other player in green. That is not helpful information to me from a foul play management standpoint. You can tell me later on that there are some shenanigans going on, but you don't have a number for it. That's fine. But don't put your flag out. Because unless I have a number, I don't have a sanction. And if I don't have a sanction, I'm not going to do anything about it. Right? Get the number. This is by way of saying, get the bloody number. Right? You have nothing else to do except maybe adjudicate touch, but get the number. Right? That simple. Okay. Halftime, bring the water, check the score, be positive, say nice things about me, about how good my hair looks, and about how well I'm refereeing. Be constructive at this point. Don't be, don't be critical, except in a, hey, really like this. Just keep an eye on, the back line, green's back line, and white rolling away. But you're doing a great job. It's pretty much what the ref should hear. Right? If you have any questions about what's going on, if the teams ask you questions, bring them to the ref and let the ref go and deal with it. If it's a simple technical question, that's fine. If it's a question about how the ref is interpreting things, bring it to the ref and let the ref deal with it. Don't try to answer the question about how the referee is interpreting something when you don't know 100% of what the referee has seen, right? You may create more problems than you're solving at that point. So that's kind of my checklist. That's what I got. Oh, and after the game, go to the bar, have a beer. Depending on who made who look good, determines who's buying first.
Question. At touch, what should the AR be looking for? So you made reference to not looking at the same things.
Right.
Okay. So in touch, what's the referee looking for? So at a throw-in, what is the referee specifically looking for?
We have dealt. I'm assuming we have dealt with the AR's responsibilities regard quick throw-in, which we discussed earlier. Okay, so we have a regular line out.
Got a line out.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to depend a little bit on the game situation. It's going to depend a little bit on the referee's confidence in you, about where the referee is going to choose to stand. My guess is the referee at the start of the game is going to choose to stand at the front of the line out, right? If they have a lot of confidence in you and they go in the back of the line out, it's going to change the answer to that question.
Right. So can you walk through that? Because so a lot of lineouts are, in my opinion, the most complicated issues in the field. There's so many things that go on in the lineout.
Right.
We don't do ourselves justice at looking at the significance of a lineout and exactly everything that goes on. So what should the ARs be looking for? The easy one is ball and straight.
Right.
That's the referee's responsibility. So if the referee is looking to determine if the ball is in straight, what should the ARs be looking for the AR that's marking the line of touch and the AR that's back 10 and marking the defense?
Yeah. Okay. So the AR who is at the front of the line out marking touch has a couple of responsibilities immediately with regard to the thrower. First up, does the ball get thrown appropriately, by which there's no double movement or other fakery going on? Do they step into the field of play, or is their foot remain in touch, their front foot?
Is that significant?
Yeah.
Why?
Because the law says that they must not step into the field of play. Right?
No, I agree.
On the field is significant.
Right. And if it has not been, if it's a double pump on a throw, just radio in. Say, Chris, double pump. That's real easy, free kick. They step in, or otherwise improperly take it, your flag stays up. That AR can also be responsible for making sure the ball goes 5 meters, right? Does the ball travel 5 meters? Does somebody catch it 5 meters in front of the line?
What does the law say?
The law says that the ball must travel without hitting the ground 5 meters.
That
right?
means that the receiver who catches the ball has to catch it behind the 5 meter line.
Well, it means two things. right? First, that the ball has to make it to the 5 meter line without touching the ground, right? And secondly, that the receiver who catches it must not catch it in front of the 5 meter line, right? And the sanction for the first one is a line out or scrum, and the sanction for the second one is free kick. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. Pretty sure that's right.
There's some wiggle room. You can argue that it's not straight at that 5 meter.
Right.
You can argue that it was a mistake. So it's a question of intent. You have to kind of look at intent. If you believe that if you feel it's the defense preventing that ball from not going 5 meters, it's probably going to be a free kick. If you think it's the offense that was a timing issue or just an inaccuracy issue, you can award the scrum at the 50. You can award the other team the option of a line out or a scrum on the 15. Within the law, you have that flexibility as a referee to determine the sanction for it. If you feel that it's intentional, it tends to be a free kick on the 15 meter because it's technical. If you feel that it was accidental, you can award it as to the other team and have their option. It's just a question of your interpretation, and you're right on both issues. It's just a question of intent.
Yeah, right. Yep. So that's what I mean, and if I'm so in terms of the other things that the front AR can do, keep an eye on if I'm following the ball, keep an eye on what the players are doing underneath it. Right? Is somebody coming across and undermining the jumper or the lifters? Is somebody binding on to a jumper before they're down on the ground? Are they levering on them? You can keep an eye on a bunch of things that, if I'm, hold on. The ball hasn't come down yet, David. So in terms of kind of, when the jumpers are in the air, making sure that remains safe, right? And do that for the front pod. The referee will take the back pod when they're back there. When it does come down, and a team is looking to maul, you can keep an eye on whether the ball is in the right location before a maul is formed, and whether the maul remains consistent, or whether you have truck and trailer issues, right? And just radio that quietly over. I'll be trying to look at the same thing, but if you have two different sides of this, it often yields up a different aspect. So, the AR who's marking 10, on the other side, their job is to make sure that the defensive backline stays on. And you need to communicate both to the backline and to that AR that the ball is still in the line out by putting your arm up as a ref, right? And so if the ref's got his arm up, line out is still on. If it's more than a meter over the line of touch, or if it comes inside 5 or goes past 15, arm goes down, backs can come up. But you're yelling at the backs to stay where they are, right? And if they come up too early, you can radio in or get your arm out, as we discussed earlier. Let me know what's going on. So, did that answer your question in 4 parts?
It did, but I would suggest that if you're actively engaged as an AR and the referee does not tell you what to look for at the lineout, you as the AR need to be asking, because every referee has. So as an example for me, I tend to, as the referee, I will look for the ball and everything that's occurring up above the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ensure that the players are safe, that they're going for the ball, they're not going for each other. That's my responsibility as a referee, which means that if I'm looking at that as a referee, I cannot see what's going on underneath the shoulders, and then that's the responsibility for the AR.
Right.
And so as an AR, you need to be clarifying what you should be looking at in terms of, and just ask the referee, what are you going to be looking for at the lineout? I think that's a good question for an AR to ask if the referee doesn't provide that information. And it's going to be situation dependent. If we're close to in goal, that responsibility is going to change. But as a typical within field of play, from the 20 to the 20, referee, again, in me as the referee, I'm going to look at everything above the shoulders. That means that the AR should be looking at everything below the shoulders, which means you're looking at players coming across to take out support players. It means that you're looking at binds to make sure that binds occur behind the ball and not in front of the ball, because a lot of technical issues occur with the binders trying to bind in front of the ball carrier to create that space. That's illegal. The other piece that needs to occur is there needs to be some communication about transferring the ball, meaning that once that line out has ended and they're starting to form that maul, ensure that that ball is being slipped, and players are taking the ball, not sliding in front of the ball. And again, that should be, if the referee is not providing that information, then the AR should be asking that, just to support what the referee wants. And unfortunately, we don't have teams of 3 in every situation. So having if it's a fairly inexperienced referee with a lot of potential, they might not know what they're looking for yet. So if you've spent a lot of time as an AR, support that. Ask questions to get clarification from the referee. But again, the notion that you said of supporting the referee, I think, is critical. But in order to support that referee, as an active AR, you've got to be asking questions if it's not being provided.
Yep, agreed. Pete.
One of the things, as an active AR, the referee may not know he needs help with, but when they call for advantage, especially on a penalty advantage, and they keep playing, know where that mark is, because if it's 5 meters farther away and 5 meters closer to the sideline, that may make the difference between kicking for touch and kicking for goal.
Right.
So having an accurate mark when the referee's been disoriented after playing advantage is really helpful to point them back to the appropriate place.
Yep, that's a good one. Thank you.
Also, for whatever reason, you're not sure if your AR has been through this course and learned all the wonderful things, what should you do to prevent him from running out on the field with his flag out and waving his arms and doing silly stuff? Should you say something to the AR before he gets to you? Before he gives you his report, very calmly with your arms at your side, tell me what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, my typical thing would, number one, I would tell them, tell them before the game what my expectations are, but I would reinforce that at the time, because that's when the adrenaline happens.
Sometimes people get heated up in the heat of the moment. They get out there, start pointing and gesturing and waving arms around, and you had a pregame talk with them, and it's
gone. Yeah, right.
Now, because we're in playoff mode, a lot of these games are being streamed. Okay, so as an example, this weekend, Chico national playoffs. Okay, they will be streamed. It's about the drama. So take the opportunity to relish in that drama. If it's a dramatic situation, take your time, both as a referee and as an AR. Make sure that your calls are accurate. The point is that people will see it. Because it's on video, people will criticize you if they're wrong. It'll come back to you if you're not. So make sure that you're slow and accurate. Don't forego having a private conversation with each other if there's dispute. The referee calls time, have the conversation. Again, give yourself ample time to make the correct decision, not the fast decision. You got to go slow to be fast.
Yep.
Can you go over, so we talked about how can an AR support the referee at scrum?
Aside from the obvious, making sure that the teams are, that the defensive lines are back 5, which, by the way, moves. Don't forget, it moves with the back foot of the scrum. It doesn't stay put. So if they're pushing the scrum, the team's moving back, and you're moving them back. Right? But if I have, if we're closer to the sideline, and I think you're going to have a decent enough view, don't be trying to do this I'm going to be very clear. Don't try and do this from halfway across the field. You can't see how things are working from halfway across the field. But if we're like within the 15s, the side of the field, and I'm infield, and you are therefore able to keep an eye on the side of the scrum that I can't see, right? And if it goes down, I'm going to want to know what's going on, right? Or if you see something, not necessarily that goes down, but if you see something that is illegal, I want to know what's going on, right? Now, it may prove that it is not material that time, right? So if you're seeing a pattern, I want to know about it before the next scrum, okay? This isn't if the scrum hasn't just been collapsed by somebody deliberately, I may not want to know, like right there and then, hey, one is boring in, right? One may be boring in, but I may not care, right? And in the initial piece, it's it's my general nature to manage that, but to have you tell me that is very useful information, right? If the scrum has collapsed and you have a deliberate perpetrator over there, then yeah, I want to know about that. Say, Chris, one white, pulled it down, right?
Can that referee at that point, is that a flaggable offense?
No.
So what about, so pulling down a scrum is not a deliberate,
It may be deliberate.
it may be deliberate, but
it
it's
is not
not a
law.
flaggable.
It's not a law 9. Law 9 is the only, if you see somebody punching somebody in the scrum, I want to know about that with a flag. But if you collapse it, that's dealt with under the scrum law 16. I forget which. Anyway, doesn't matter. So don't stick your flag out, but do radio. If we don't have radios, that's fine. But the next breakdown, give me some intel. Tell me what you're seeing, right? Everyone looks at different things on these things, and everyone sees different pieces of it. If you're seeing something, I want to know about it. It helps us manage it, right? For the most part, with the scrum, we're looking to manage it and change behavior rather than penalize the shit out of it, right? If we have to penalize it, if it's ongoing, fine, right? If it's material, fine. But if the team wins the scrum, regardless of their opposition boring in, I'm getting on with it. I'm not blowing the whistle at that point, right? And so don't be getting all excited, but do give me the feedback. So if players come unbound, you can yell at them to bind back on again. Perfectly reasonable. 6 green, bind on. Tells me he's unbound, tells him he's unbound again. Right? Stop silly things happen. Ball goes the other way, nobody cares. Next time I now know how to work with him. Right? Anything else? All right. I wrote some notes on ARs on number 4s, but I think Eric's going to take that instead. So,
Eric, you're up.
I'm ready.
Cool.
thanks,
Do
everyone.
you have anything that's on the presentation, or are you just gonna talk?
Just talk.
Okay.
Although, if you could get the Pelicans website so people can see where stuff can be found.
Cheese, pepperoni combo.
You were chunking away that mango all the time.
Chris. Kansas, Long Beach, Chico State, and then one team with a Viking. I have no idea. Kansas is coming here? It's spring finals.
Let's see. We want forms.
It's under resources and then forms.
I'm not seeing resources here.
It'll be around that.
Resources underneath home, all the way on the left. There you
Oh, okay, there we go.
There you go.
And then
Scroll
forms.
down to-
That's
all the revenue.
Yeah.
Not quite as good.
Well, no, I sort of did these, last time.
Yeah.
Referee third ball. Referee back.
There you go.
And what do you want?
That's it.
Okay.
Just so people can see
Okay.
where they are.
Yes, yes.
Okay. First exciting question. Where in the law book can you find out about the role of a number 4, 5, or 6? Exactly. It's not in the law book. Everything about the role of a number 4, 5, or 6 is it's purely built up around the game. You're not going to find it in the game guidelines. You're going to find it by talking to other people. So that's what I'm doing. Is I'm kind of telling you what the role of the number 4, 5, or 6 is. And speaking of which, what is the difference between a 4, 5, and 6? Good question. If you actually have 3 people handling it, number 4 acts as the sub person for the home team, Number 5 handles the away team, and number 6 records the information. That's the ideal situation, but normally you only have one person that is doing all 3 things. Okay, the major task for the 4, 5, or 6 is mainly player substitution and movement on and off the field, and keeping track of all the information that's related to that and the score. Things you will need a clipboard. You will need pens, extra pens. You will need a watch. You will need cards. I brought samples of them. You can go to the Pelicans website and you can print out this, which is a player substitution chit. You have to cut it into pieces. I normally give each team 10. You can also, at the Pelicans website, get a USA Rugby running score form. At the top, it lists the home and visiting team. And then every time a score is made, you write down the time, the team, what it was, who made it, and you keep a running score on this side. You can also get USA Rugby player movement substitution form. Same, team. Every time a player goes on and off the field, you indicate who went off, who went on, why, and at what time it happened. You can also get the technical zone information. Usually one team's going to be on one side of you, the other team's going to be on the other side of you, and you're going to be right there kind of midfield. So, let me go back to my list here. Now, these things may be supplied to you when you show up to the game. Sometimes the match organizer has things all ready for you, and they might even hand it to you on a clipboard. That very rarely happens. So what you do is ahead of the game, on each individual chit, write the team name, put it on a little clip, introduce yourself to the coach and say, who is going to be doing substitutions? You find the person that's going to be doing substitutions. You say, I'm going to be the number 4. Have you done this before? They will almost always say yes. Explain to them what you want is when they want a substitution, they bring the form filled out and the player to you, and the player will go in on the next dead ball. Try to make that as clear as you possibly can. Okay. The most important thing for the role of the number 4 is to make life easy for the ref. That's really what your role is. Always check in with the ref before the game and work out how they want you to do things, okay? How they want you to handle those substitutions. Normally the way the substitutions happens are on a dead ball, right? So most refs, if it's a line out or a scrum, they want to know that a substitution is coming on. If you have a radio and you've worked this out with the referee ahead of time, you can say, we have a substitution, white 6 off. Usually they don't care who's coming on. They want to know who is going off. If it is a conversion kick, normally referees just want you to send the substitutes on and they don't necessarily care about it at that point, as long as players don't run in front of the kicker. And many coaches will use conversion kicks at a time to send players on. So those are basically the times that substitutions are going to be happening. Also, at the end of halftime, check with the coaches and say, have you made any substitutions at halftime? Sometimes they do. So those are the 3 times that you check for substitutions. Dead balls at scrums and lineouts, conversion kicks, and halftime. Okay. The other thing that the number 4 can do to make life easier for the referee is if they give out a yellow card, they don't necessarily want to time it. It's your responsibility, or can be your responsibility, to time a yellow card. Remember, yellow cards, the time doesn't start until that player is physically off the field. Okay? So wait until the player gets off the field, then note down what time it is. And then 10 minutes later, on the next dead ball, you can somehow, once again, get a hold of the referees, either through the ARs or a radio. And I always tell the yellow card, check with the ref first, going back into the game. Okay.
Which watch are you looking at that?
Hmm?
Which watch are you looking at?
Yeah.
Which of the 2 watches are you looking
I normally have one watch, and that watch keeps track of the time of the actual game time. So yellow cards are 10 minutes of actual game time. The other thing where players can come off and then go back on again is blood substitutions. Once again, this doesn't happen until the player is physically off the field. That's 15 minutes clock time. So what I normally do is I either wear 2 watches, or I just simply use my phone and set the timer for 15 minutes. Okay? So those are the things that that a number 4 will handle. Okay. So here's a question. When can an injured player return to the field of play? Never.
Aside from a blood substitute?
Never. On these chits, it'll say tactical substitution, injury. I always tell the coaches, never mark injury, because that means that player can never go back on the field. Period. I don't care why. An injured player can never go back on the field. So it's always best to mark tactical substitution. Okay, but when can a tactically substituted player return to the field of the play? There are 5 instances. They can replace an injured front row player. Okay. They can go on to replace a blood sub. Okay. A player undergoing a head injury assessment.
Doesn't count for us.
An injured player can go on to replace them.
No, we're not doing that.
We don't have head injuries.
At our level, we don't do head bends, but an injured, a tactically substituted player can replace a head injured player. Okay.
So we're clarifying that, though. It's not head injury. It's just injury.
Yes.
There's no HIA.
Yes.
At any level that.
But that's the way the law reads. So that's why I'm saying it that way.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Eric, hold on a second.
And
Hang on. We have a clarification here, okay? We don't have the brain bend, right? So that is out. What I think you just said is that if a player receives a head injury, then a tactically substituted player can come on for them.
yes.
So okay, so it's like if he breaks his leg, tough shit. If he gets knocked out, he can get the tactically substituted player can come on regardless of the position.
No.
That's what I'm clarifying.
So hang on. So a player, all right, let's assume that number 14 comes off tactically.
Yeah.
And number 22 goes on.
Right.
And then let's assume that number 22 gets injured as a result of foul play.
Foul play is different. We weren't talking about foul play.
If that player gets hurt as a result of foul play, the tactical player can replace it
Immediately.
He can, yes,
Can't do it later. You can do it right there.
correct.
Yes. That's number 4. A substituted player can go on to replace someone that was injured because of foul play.
Right.
Okay. Now, each of these counts as a substitution against your number of substitutions, though. These aren't freebies. Okay.
And the fifth one is a front row player who was tactically replaced can come back on to replace an injured front row player.
Yes. Yes.
Or a yellow card player.
So the most important thing about being a number 4 is to know law 3 inside and out. I mean, you really have to know the fine points. And now to give you an idea of how fun this can be sometime, I've actually put together a little scenario. Okay, here's the scenario. It's the second half. It's a tied score. We're 15 minutes in. The referee awards a penalty try to white. The ref hands out a red card and a yellow card to blue team. Earlier in the game, white number 3 was tactically substituted. White number 3 came back on to replace an injured front row player. Then white number 3 gets tactically substituted again. White number 1 goes off as a blood sub, bleeding from the face. White number 3 comes back on to replace number 1. Red decides to sub 3 players. They come to you with cards. White decides to sub 2 players. They come to you with cards. You notice that the white coach has sent an extra player onto the field. What do you do?
Who are you, the number 3, or are you the referee?
As a number 4,
Excuse me, the number 4. Sorry.
as a number 4, you've got a lot to chew on here. Okay? You're supposed to be recording all of these player movements. You're supposed to be recording the scores. You're supposed to be recording the times these things happen and make sure it all happens according to the law. So being number 4 can be overwhelming at points, but the main thing is if you feel yourself in an overwhelmed position, let things slow down again. Just as if you're reffing a game and you get in a position.
How do you do that as a number 4?
You just take your time. Coaches are going to want to send their players in right away. I want to send these guys in right away. It's a dead ball. It doesn't matter how fast they get on. Cool your jets, right? That's one way of doing it. Don't send players on until you're ready to send them on.
Right, but as the referee, I need to know that, right? And so you as the AR, if you have a radio, fine. You don't talk to the, sorry, you as number 4, you can either talk to the AR who has a radio, or you can radio me directly and say, we have substitutions happening.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take time off.
Yeah.
And then you have time. But that's the first thing you need to do. You need time to make sure we've got it right. You tell me as the ref, and I'll get you time.
Right.
Right? What I don't want you to do is to let the play go on and then tell me that white has 15 on the field when he should have 14. Because now we look stupid.
Right.
Right? And so I entirely agree. Take your time and get it right. But tell me first that you need time.
Yeah.
And then you've got as much time as you need.
This is why I really encourage number 4s to train the coaches, so to speak, to, I always say as clear as I possibly can, when you want to make a substitution, bring this form filled out and the player to me, and I will send them on the next dead ball. That can save a lot of those pressure situations from happening. But the last thing I said was the interesting one. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but the white coach was sending another player on the field. This has actually happened to me before. The ref yellow carded a player, and I'm watching the person come off, getting the time, getting the number. Meanwhile, I noticed that, hey, there's a player going on the field. And I go, Coach, what are you doing? Well, I'm sending him in to replace the yellow card. So you really need to watch player movement on and off the field. But the top priority as a number 4 is once again to make life easier for the referee. So, yes.
If a prop gets yellow carded, when do they substitute for that prop? You have to wait till the next scrum, right?
Yeah, the whole thing about front rows and who can play where isn't necessarily supposed to be evaluated by the number 4, right? It's up to the team to supply correctly trained players for certain positions, and it's not your role to evaluate. It's your role to make sure that things happen as they are supposed to. So if number 23 goes on and plays in the front row, that's not your responsibility to try and figure these things out, right? If you read Law 3, you'll discover that a lot of the responsibilities at that level fall upon the match organizer, not on the referee and not on the person sending substitutions on and off. So that's what I'm saying. It's really important to know Law 3 pretty inside and out, because the strange things that you think will never happen.
Make a
Yes.
suggestion on that. Whenever I've done fourth official, in addition to the things that you have printed out, I have a copy of Law 3 printed out and on my clipboard.
Yeah.
Because that way, when somebody says, "But sir," you show them. It says right here.
That's why instead of a clipboard, I have a container. And in this container, I have all kinds of interesting things, including Law 3 printed out. So now, but you really don't want to take time during a game to get into a discussion with the coach about whether things should or shouldn't happen. But it is nice to have a hard printout of the law so that after the game, you can point at it and you can say, right here, right?
The point to my question about the yellow carded front row is a lot of teams are under the misconception that as soon as that front row comes off, well, we're going to pull a flanker right now, we're going to put a new front row back on. And the reality is that substitution doesn't happen unless and until there is a scrum during that yellow card period, and then and only then do you make that substitution. If you have 10 minutes of game time without a scrum, then that change never occurred.
Right.
So it doesn't happen until then. I've had a lot of teams go, well, none of the props out. We're sending our flanker off. We're bringing another prop on. I'm like, no, not now. You don't do it now.
Right.
You don't do it until there's a scrum, and then we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
And that would be a responsibility I would feel that would fall on the floor to prevent teams from trying to make that substitution then. Now, if they want to put 22 on for 14, okay, fine. You know, if that's their substitution, that happens during that time. That has nothing to do with that front row play.
And those kind of substitutions, let's say they pull number 11 off to bring a front row on in case they have to do a sub, then on the player movement chart, you have to record that. You're not going to get a chit from a coach saying that, but you have to figure out, okay, who just went off? You can ask the coaches and they'll tell you. And it's your responsibility to record all of that player movement. None of this stuff matters unless it matters, and then it really matters. So you want to make sure you get this stuff right, okay? So the main role of the number 4 is to make life easy for the referee any way they possibly can. Always before the game, find out from the referee how they want you to handle the subs, how you're going to go about doing it, whether you're going to be taking care of yellow cards, whether you're going to be taking a blood subs, how much responsibility does that ref want to give you, and then follow through on that responsibility. Yes?
The number 4, in my view, should attend the pre-game meeting with the ARs as well, right?
It's probably not a bad idea, yeah.
And then everybody's on the same page. You can discuss at that point whose responsibility is what the communication is going to be, You know, is everybody mic'd up? Is everything working? Does everybody know what they're doing?
What I normally do is I talk to the ref first, and I say, and I work out with him how substitutions are going to be handled, right? If you have a radio, then you work out what is that actual communication going to be.
But the AR is part of that discussion,
Yes.
right? So there's no.
If you have no radios, then you discuss with the ARs, okay, I'm going to be bringing subs to you, and then we get the ref's attention, okay? That's what I do. If it's a line out or a scrum, I always tell the players, follow me. And then I go over to the AR, and at that point I say we have a substitution, right? It's since almost every game you may do is different, and the forms may be different because USA Rugby also has combined player movement and running score forms. So they may hand you that. So you have to be flexible about this. But the important thing is make the ref's life easy, right? That's the whole job. Any other questions? I hope we have teams of 3 on the sidelines handling the paperwork, because that makes it a whole lot easier. The other thing about the number 4 is you have to act a little bit as a policeman, because with the technical zones, you sometimes have to tell the coaches, coach, you're supposed to be over there. Players, you're supposed to be behind the fence. So you have to do a little bit of crowd management too, but that's about it. Good.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Yep.